Okay, so everyone's talking about AI, right? Massive investments, incredible potential. But let's be real. How many companies are actually getting it right? The reality on the ground is often a very different story. So let's dive into that. Let's unpack how to get an AI strategy off a PowerPoint slide and make it a real working advantage for your business.
And we're going to start with a pretty brutal truth. A staggering 95% of enterprise AI projects fail to deliver their expected return on investment. Let that sink in. 95%. That means almost all the time, money, and brain power being poured into AI, it's just not paying off. It's a huge, huge problem.
So what's going on here? Why is this happening? The issue usually isn't the tech itself. The failure almost always happens in what we call the last mile, that critical final gap between a brilliant high-level strategy and actually making it work on the front lines, inside every team, in every workflow. This is where great ideas go to die.
So in this explainer, we are going to tackle that last mile problem head on. First, we'll dig into that implementation gap. Then we'll walk through a really practical 4-step model to fix it. We'll look at how to embed AI agents right into your strategy, and then the grand finale, how to build the learning system that ties it all together and creates this engine for nonstop improvement.
All right, first things first, let's really understand this AI implementation gap. Before you can build a bridge, you got to know how wide the canyon is. And spoiler alert, it's not just one single crack.
The failure in that last mile really comes down to 3 big disconnects. First, there's a cognitive gap. This is when leadership thinks implementing AI is just like buying a new piece of software, a transaction, when it's actually a total shift in how you think. Second, the organizational gap. You've got the AI tech teams in one corner and the business teams in another, and they're not talking. So you get projects that are maybe technically cool, but strategically useless. And finally, the capability gap. Your employees, the people who are supposed to use this stuff, just don't have the skills to work with these new AI tools. These 3 gaps together, they create a perfect storm for failure.
Okay, so we've mapped out the problem. We see the gaps. Now, how do we actually bridge them? Let's shift gears and look at the solution. A structured, 4-step model for a real AI transformation. Think of this as our practical roadmap to get from chaos to clarity.
So the model pictures AI transformation not as some massive one-off project, but as a journey, kind of like climbing a set of stairs. Each step you take builds directly on the one before it, systematically lifting the entire organization up from just having basic goals to becoming a place of constant AI-fueled learning.
So let's break down that journey. Step 1 is strategic intent. This is all about asking why are we even doing this and finding the real performance gaps that need fixing. Next up is innovation focus. This isn't about just slapping AI onto your old processes. It's about totally reimagining them with AI from the ground up. Then comes the really critical part, strategy decoding. This is where you translate the big, fancy ideas into actual concrete tasks for both your people and for the AI. And all of this builds toward the ultimate goal, step 4, creating a real learning system, a feedback loop that guarantees your organization is always getting smarter.
So, that 4-step model is the what. Now let's get into the how. How do we make this framework actually work? We make it actionable by embedding a super powerful concept directly into our existing business models, AI agents.
The way to do this is to take a proven framework, something like the Business Leading Model, or BLM, which already covers your whole strategic process. The magic trick here is to plug specific AI agents into each and every stage. See, this isn't about having a separate AI department off in a silo. It's about weaving intelligence directly into the DNA of how you plan and execute strategy.
But hold on, before we go any further, what exactly is an AI agent? Let's make this simple. Think of it as a smart software program that's designed to handle one specific, complex task all by itself. It's the basic building block, It's the smallest, most practical unit of action for actually putting AI to work in your company.
And here's what that looks like in practice. For every single part of your strategy, you deploy a dedicated agent. So are you trying to figure out why sales are down? A performance gap agent can diagnose that for you. Need to know what's coming next in your industry? A trend insight agent is constantly scanning the market. As you can see, you create this direct, one-to-one mapping that turns abstract strategic goals into a series of automated, intelligent actions. It's incredibly powerful.
So we have a model, and we have the tools, these AI agents. But how does this all come together to create a lasting advantage?
Well, that brings us to the final and, frankly, the most critical step, building a learning system. This is the part where AI stops being just a tool that does stuff and becomes the very engine of your company's improvement.
This quote right here gets to the heart of what separates the 95% who fail from the 5% who succeed. The real goal isn't to just buy and install some AI tools. The true, lasting competitive advantage comes from building an organization that learns from every single action, every decision, and every bit of data it generates.
And this idea really comes to life in a continuous feedback loop. It starts with data, which leads to learning. That learning informs a smarter decision, which then triggers an action. The results of that action create feedback, which then fuels a whole new cycle of relearning. Now, in what we can call a high-energy organization, AI puts this entire loop on autopilot, making it run faster and more often than any human team ever could. It creates this relentless momentum of improvement.
We can actually boil this whole concept down to a simple but really powerful formula. Your organizational intelligence is roughly equal to your data times your algorithms, all multiplied by your feedback speed. Now, data and algorithms are obviously the fuel here, but look at that force multiplier on the end, speed. The faster you can complete that learning loop, the smarter your entire organization becomes.
So what does all this mean for the future? Well, it means we have to completely rethink what competitive advantage even looks like in the age of AI.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway from all of this. The long-term race, it's not about who has the fanciest algorithm or the biggest pile of data. The ultimate competition is going to be between the learning systems themselves. The winner will be the organization whose ability to learn and adapt simply outpaces everyone else.
And that leaves us with one final critical question for you to think about. Look at your own strategy, your own teams, your own projects. Are you just using AI as another tool, or are you truly building a system that is learning with it? Because the answer to that question will probably determine whether you end up in the 95% or in the 5%.